Attention chiropractors, slayers of subluxation, unleashers of the imprisoned impulse. I am Dr. Anthony Pellegrino from ChiroEdge, and welcome to this week's episode of the Chiropractic Research Breakdown, where each week we break down the most relevant chiropractic science and philosophy to empower you with the ammo and certainty necessary to change your community from the inside out. All right, subluxation slayers, welcome to another episode, and today I'm excited because I actually am on lunch. I am spending the weekend learning from a chiropractic, specifically pediatric chiropractic Dumbledore by the name of Dr. Marty Rosen at his pediatric spinal and cranial SOT certification series. And it has been a weekend of just really cool stuff. It's just, I love doing seminars where you just see the amazing changes and the amazing possibilities, and you can come and implement in your practice. And it's just like falling in love with chiropractic over and over and over again. So with that being said, if you guys hear me clicking or typing or anything like that, or in the microphone, it's just because I don't have my normal setup. So just kind of, well, honestly, deal with it. But today we are going to be discussing, which I'm really excited about, circling back to the autonomic nervous system and the function and adaptability of the autonomic nervous system in fibromyalgia. We're going to go through and talk about subluxation. We're going to talk about what you can gain from this article in terms of understanding and communication, as well as relating it to some systems and procedures that you might already be using, or maybe you're on the fence about using. So again, the name of the article is Reduced Activity, Reactivity, and Functionality of the Sympathetic Nervous System in Fibromyalgia, an Electrodermal Study. It's from a journal that we've been seeing really great articles from like this over and over and over again. I've reviewed some recently called PLOS ONE, and it is published out of the Department of Psychology in the University of Jaen in Spain. So the authors state that fibromyalgia is one of the most prevalent chronic pain disorders, and that the etiology and pathophysiology of fibromyalgia are unknown, and that there are no specific somatic signs of the disease. So I think I've mentioned on the podcast before the diagnosis of fibromyalgia and how it used to be, and most people think that it still is, a physical examination where there are different tender points or trigger points on the body, 18 specifically, and that the medical doctor will press on those trigger points, specifically a rheumatologist, I think, is who gives the diagnosis, will press on those 18 trigger points, and if 11 are positive, then we're diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Now, in 2019, a quick Mayo Clinic search, it says that we changed the diagnosis from those physical exams on tender point, from 11 of 18 tender points, to just simply widespread pain of greater than 3 months. So there's no physical exam, there's no blood tests, although they will do blood tests to look for other things. There's nothing about what fibromyalgia is or isn't. If you get on the phone, call a doctor and said, I've had widespread pain for 4 months, they can just say, great, well, you have fibro. Here's some drugs. Now, why would they decide to make that change? Why would they change the diagnosis? And the Mayo Clinic states that the reason that they changed the diagnosis was because doctors didn't know how hard to press. What happens if 8 trigger points are positive one day and 12 are the next? Is that fibro? Is it not? And that's the reason they said that they changed the diagnosis. But a quick Google search brings us to a fun progression of why this change may have happened. If you guys don't know, the top drugs used to treat fibromyalgia are Lyrica, gabapentin, Cymbalta, Topamax, Savella, Tramadol, amitriptyline. There's a bunch of different medications that are used, but the number one medication that is prescribed is one called Lyrica. If you were to go and look at Lyrica profits, what you'll find is an article from the Daily Northwestern talking about what they're going to do, what Northwestern is going to do as Lyrica profits dry up. This is an article from 2016. In this, again, from Northwestern, the pharmaceutical company. They talk all in this article about how I can't overemphasize how important the Lyrica money is for us. It's almost legendary status. In bold, in the article, released from Northwestern, right? released from this university. It's just mind-blowing to me that this is just what what they're talking about is how they have to figure out an alternative because the Lyrica profits have just done amazing things for Northwestern universities, where they say in addition to helping millions of patients, of course, right? Lyrica benefited Northwestern University in several ways as royalties invested in the endowment supported areas such as financial aid, campus facilities, and research support. The chunk of endowment that is directly attributable to Lyrica is mind-boggling, the university president Morton Shapiro in an interview with the Daily in January. It's an enormous amount of money. And this is where they go through and say that it's almost legendary status, how much money the university, for example, gained from Lyrica. So you can just see that as those profits start to dry up, there's just huge things to be gained by having more people be diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So if they start seeing that in 2016, it went from about 10 to 20% growth year over year. And in 2016, those profits actually started dropping and have actually dropped significantly over recent years. But it just seems like they were doing anything to be able to get more people diagnosed with fibromyalgia so that they can get more people taking this drug. Now, this is all speculation. Don't go out there and say that, Dr. Anthony Pellegrino has research to support the fact that the only reason that the diagnostic criteria for fibromyalgia was expanded was because Lyrica profits were driving up. But if you guys are listening to this and you guys are chiropractors, you guys typically read through the lines. So, the writing, I believe, is on the wall. But that's not the point of this conversation. The point is to look at how clinical and experimental studies in the past have revealed autonomic nervous system deficiencies in fibromyalgia. And the authors suggest or state that it has been suggested that dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system, specifically an overactive sympathetic nervous system, might be important to understand both chronic pain and fibromyalgia syndrome. The study sought to look not just at autonomic activity at rest, but they sought to see how individuals with fibro, and this is a quote from them, demonstrated decreased adaptability of autonomic activity to stresses, and that there would be an inverse relationship between autonomic activity and levels of pain and fatigue. Well, if you are a chiropractor, then you understand how subluxation affects, and I hope you have outcome measures to show how subluxation affects autonomic adaptability and how the adjustment and correction of subluxation improves adaptability. And I hope that that's the conversation that you have with your practice members on a daily basis, that it's not about your pain, but it's how your body is adapting. So if you have somebody with these chronic pain things, I hope you're not actually talking just about how, well, we're going to take some tension off the muscles and ligaments and we're going to get some stuck things moving, but we're actually influencing the adaptability of the nervous system. Because this is a study that's not written by chiropractors where they talk about things like chronic pain and fibro and say it is not a muscle ligament issue, it is a nervous system issue. All right? So what they did, and this is where I get really excited, was they took women who were diagnosed with fibromyalgia and they measured skin conductance to determine autonomic activity. Now, why is that measurement of skin conductance important? If you guys are familiar with a little technology that I talk about called the Insight, there's a core score where you can take 3 different technologies. They also have a 5 technology core score, but that's another conversation. My 3 favorite technologies are the thermal, right, which you've probably seen pattern and different things like that. The surface electromyography, or SEMG, and Dr. Fletcher and the Insight crew have gone really, really, really hard on heart rate variability and really utilizing that. Now, heart rate variability isn't exactly what we're talking about here, but that's just heart rate variability helps us to understand the balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system and where our state is at right now. But if you guys use the Insight's version of the HRV, you probably have noticed that not only does it assess for the heart rate, which would be the HRV, but it also assesses for skin conductance and skin temperature. And that when taking those three measurements combined, it plots x-axis and a y-axis. The x-axis for the insight is the balance, again, between the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. But the y-axis is what Dr. Fletcher calls the autonomic activity index. And what he also mentions relates to reserve capacity, essentially how much autonomic activity is there, how much is that person going to be able to heal. So the amazing thing is that not only are they, in this research study, showing or seeking to show, we haven't gotten to the results yet, changes in skin conductance, changes in sympathetic nervous system activity, if that's not something that gets you excited enough. But what they're also demonstrating is that the very same measurements that you possibly, if you're on the fence, then maybe this will help, the very same measurements that we take in our office are the very same measurements that are being used at the Department of Psychology in University of Jaen, Spain. And that if we saw a decrease in this autonomic activity that they measured, we can measure the same things. But that what we can also measure, which is different from what they're looking at, is how has that autonomic activity index improved with our care? And if the same measurement that is related to dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system, if that same measurement that is related to dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system that relates to the fibromyalgia diagnosis improves, then not only does it make sense that, yes, the symptom improves, but as their body becomes more adaptable, as their body heals, that we are going to make life-altering autonomic changes for this individual. So they took these skin conductor measurements in two ways. They took it both at rest and after deep breathing. What they found was they said our results showed both reduced tonic skin conductance levels and skin conductance responses in fibromyalgia patients when compared with healthy participants. They also found that state anxiety, which is essentially, they're referencing this as a transit anxiety that would happen due to being a laboratory testing situation. Both that level of anxiety and body temperature changed alongside skin conductance in healthy people, meaning that as the changes of their autonomic activity changed, then, or improved, let's say, or changed, then their levels of anxiety would improve, and their body temperature would improve, and their regulation would improve as well. And that was a measurement that showed up in the healthy control group. But there was a disconnect in the fibro, people with fibromyalgia, that their internal stated level of anxiety and their body temperature didn't correlate with what their autonomic nervous system was doing whatsoever. So there is a disconnect, essentially, between the brain and the body, almost like what happens in subluxation. The authors state that these results suggest that slower adaptation to the evaluation situation in turn suggests that these individuals have fewer autonomic adaptation resources and less flexibility in response to environmental changes. I think that the author must have been in a chiropractic office, because that's the only reason that they must be educated on the adaptability in the nervous system by a chiropractor in order to use these terms so close to what we say. So it's just amazing to me to see that we see in our profession people that don't want to talk about the nervous system. They don't want to talk about those things. They just want to talk about back pain, neck pain. Yet that's the wrong move, because all research is pointing to what we have been saying since 1895. Right? This lower ability to adapt to situational requirements has previously been observed in not only fibromyalgia, but also other general chronic pain disorders. This is shown up in other studies in ways such as cardiovascular changes like orthostatic hypertension, where the severity of the hypertension, of the non-adaptability of the blood pressure in the body correlates with the severity of the condition or disease, and cognitively, that shows up as a less capacity to adapt and adjust to task requirements. aka fibro fog, if you guys have ever heard that, where cognitively individuals with fibromyalgia, they just can't handle as much, they just can't think as well. And it's because of, as the author states, this inadaptability of the autonomic nervous system, which is the one thing that we can most demonstrate that we change with chiropractic care. In conclusion, the authors say, this study showed that reduced skin conductance levels, again, that's measuring autonomic activity, a less marked decrease in skin conductance during the recording period, and decreased autonomic activity or autonomic reactivity to physiological manipulation, specifically the deep breathing, all suggesting alterations in sweating and reduced sympathetic activity to the skin. Furthermore, the absence of associations of skin conductance with state anxiety and body temperature suggests a loss of functionality in the autonomic nervous system in fibromyalgia. Together, these, with previous findings of autonomic nervous system alterations of fibromyalgia, diminished autonomic regulation in the disease would reduce the organism's ability to, listen, okay, I'm reading to you from the conclusion. Just listen to the words that I'm saying, that they're saying. Together, with the previous finding of autonomic nervous system alterations in fibromyalgia, diminished autonomic regulation in this disease would, here we go, reduce the organism's ability to cope with environmental demands, thus favoring increases in stress and pain levels. What the authors just said was that this decreased autonomic activity will decrease the body's ability to cope with the 3 T's, with traumas, toxins, and thoughts. Decreases the ability and will show up in this way, whether it's cardiovascularly, whether it's cognitively, whether it's just the general chronic pain. Wow. Chiropractic is not just chiropractic. Chiropractic philosophy is not just chiropractic philosophy. It's just simple physiology that we as chiropractors are not the only ones to understand. Lack of adaptability to traumas, toxins, and thoughts causes dis-ease in the body. That's it. Dis-ease long enough causes poor health. Poor health long enough causes bad feeling, if you want to think about it like that. If we increase the adaptability of the body to traumas, toxins, and thoughts, because completely eliminating those traumas, toxins, and thoughts are things we cannot put our practice members in a bubble, nor do we want to. What we can do is get their body to be better able to adapt with gentle, specific, and scientific chiropractic adjustments, allowing their body to be better adapt to the 3 T's, and we can create ease in the body, and creating ease in the body relates to improved function, and improved function means to improved health, and improved health means feeling better. University of Jaen. I don't know if there's a chiropractic college near you. There's Barcelona Chiropractic College, but I don't really know too much about that or anything about Spain or how far away they are. I don't know what chiropractor you spoke to. But thank you for publishing this, because it just makes me excited to go to my office and keep with me the knowledge and understanding that every adjustment that I give to any person, regardless of the condition, is life-altering. Hope you guys keep that with you today. I love you all. Go slay some subluxations.